everyone. Thank you for joining me on this podcast episode that I'm calling Old Ladies Laughing and Making It Happen. If you've been following me, you know that I just recently turned 79. You also know that I have other tags attached to my name besides being old. Tags like smart cars, cowboy hats, and author. All of these make people think of me. Recently, I just finished up my annual Medicare checkup, and I left the doctor's office with my health technicians cheering me on, saying, "You are aging gracefully." And as I drove home along the winding river road that I always find so spiritually inspiring, I thought about my state of health and how is it that I have made it so far. My parents passed away before they reached 65. And why are so many people 20 years younger than me all used up before their time? So I said, you know what? Tag me also aging gracefully. The other day, my good friend and I were parked at the beach with my car windows rolled down, and we were watching the sunset. We were both laughing crazy out loud over some silly thing when I felt a rush of love. I was so happy because my friend had begun to laugh again after the unexpected loss of her husband only months before. While we were overcome in some ecstatic bout of hilarity, a young woman was returning to her car that was parked beside us. And unable to ignore our jubilant laughter, she glanced over at us, and I smiled and said hello. And I remember thinking, she probably thinks we're high on something, but then probably figured we were too old to be high. Then she started to approach my car. And now I figured that she was going to tell me how she loved my car because my car seems to delight everyone. And they go out of their way to tell me so. But instead, her face lit up with a mischievous grin and she said, "I want to be just like you guys when I'm your age." And in response, we all laughed together. Other young people make similar comments to me. And it always warms my heart just to hear them say that. I said a silent thank you to the power that arranges these impromptu moments like these that bring people together and allows us to see beyond ourselves. I wondered if my dear friend had heard the respect and honor the woman had just given us. I am sure she did, because my friend, I call her a Jesus addict. I hope she knew that her Jesus would be pleased that she was still shining her light in spite of her loss. And what about the young woman? I'll bet she went back to Portland with a new perspective about growing old, and that it is not only possible, but that she was given a sweet view of a future to strive for. And me? Well, when my energy overflows into someone else's life like it did that evening, I feel like I have given a gift from my heart. It feels like I've given them something priceless that money can't buy. So each of us left the beach that evening with a nourished soul and a warm heart, all grateful that we had touched each other's lives and been reassured that we matter. These kinds of moments have become rare in our society because, as Americans, we are experiencing a social crisis. David Brooks, an eloquent storyteller and journalist, states we have lost our social skills and that we no longer know how to connect with one another. But I say we have not lost them, but chosen to bury them during the dark days of 2020, when we were confronted with not the kind of plague that destroys life, but the kind of plague that destroys our character. And now, 5 years later, we find our humanity at a crossroads. Here are just a few statistics. 36% of Americans report that they are persistently lonely. The depression rate has risen 30% since the year 2000. And did you know 45% of high school students feel hopeless and despondent? The amount of Americans who report they have no friends whom they feel that they could go to in a time of need, it has increased fourfold. And the number of Americans who report that they are not in a romantic relation has increased a third since the year 2000. And finally, the number of Americans who rate themselves in the lowest category of happiness, has doubled. These statistics are dire. And even worse is the fact that the more sad we become, do you know what happens? The more sad we become, the meaner we become. And we begin to feel under threat. 72% of young adults feel like people are out to get them. Knowing this is why I am even more grateful for our encounter at the beach that evening. And yet, in spite of all the confusion, we all have one thing in common. First of all, gone are the days of apathy in this country. We are no longer worried about how many potholes we encountered on our way to work, or was our favorite TV show going to be canceled. We are all finally in agreement about one thing. We need a change. Somebody needs to do something. The trouble is, we don't know how to make it happen. But here's what I do know after racking up 79 years on this earth. Nothing has ever changed in my life until I took action and I stepped out my front door. Oh, I would not have made it to the age of 79 feeling happy, joyous, and as free as I do if I had remained locked down in the deceiving safety of my comfort zone. Remaining in my comfort zone was never an option for me. It will not bring me long-term joy or happiness. This is not just my opinion. There is stunning research which backs up this fact. In 1938 and continuing for over 80 years, Harvard followed 738 participants and their offspring throughout their lifetimes as they took part in an extensive research program called the Happiness Project. They wanted to know what makes people happy. The results of this 80-year study were consistent and very surprising. You will be blown away. It was not career achievements that mattered, and it was not about money, nor was it about exercise or a healthy diet that tipped the scales of happiness. The consistent findings over nearly 8.5 decades spoke in volumes. The key to not only happiness, but also the key to living longer depended on one thing: connection with others. Loners did not fare well in this study. They found loneliness as a killer. Being lonely can be compared to smoking 20 cigarettes a day. And having good genes, it's nice, but researchers discovered that those who consumed supplements and protein drinks and spent hours of exercise in the gym came in considerably lower on the happiness scale and on the longevity charts. You can run marathons, you can eat organic, you can be a vegetarian if you wish. But here's the kick. The statistics presented a very powerful case. The participants who were active within their communities or in local clubs and with their families and friends were happier and lived the longest. The loners did not compete against these engaged in mature relationships. And here is why. You want to know why? It doesn't make sense, I know. Without mature relationships with others, we do not feel we are being seen or being heard. Now, although that seems like an insignificant detail, it is deadly. Feeling unheard and like no one sees us leads to a much more critical and debilitating feeling that we don't matter. And that, my friend, is the core of loneliness. And it's a surefire, painful, and early death sentence. The key to long-term happiness and healthy aging is relationships, relationships, relationships. So what does this mean? It means that we need to get up off our broken down cat-clawed couches and unlock the front door and step outside. Your comfort zone is a sterile place, that is true. But there's no stimulation, no challenge to test or flex your physical and your mental muscles. Your comfort zone is a place to go to die. How many of you are a fan of The Lord of the Rings? If you are, maybe you'll recognize this quote. It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out that front door. You step out into the road, and if you don't keep your feet, there's no knowing where you might be swept off to. But I say to you, Frodo, don't worry. If you find the courage to step out the front door, you might just encounter two old women in the car laughing at the beach. And if you do, you will be swept away by their inspiring, positive energy and find God's intentions for you. Positive energy is contagious. You will be a part of a new, feel-good pandemic I am calling hyper-hospitality. You will be spreading the kind of joy and happiness that spreads like wildfire. So let's create a new pandemic caused by a hyper-hospitality. Let's make it happen. Ultimately, the journey to becoming more, to finding happiness and longevity begins with the courage to step out the front door, beyond the familiar, and embrace the unfamiliar and the unknown. Come on, you've got this. Let's make it happen. Thank you all for taking time to listen to this old lady in a cowboy hat driving a smart car and aging gracefully and making it happen. And thank you, Pastor Chris of the Brookings Nazarene Church, for the idea and the inspiration of a new contagion, hyper hospitality. And don't forget to go to my website, www.judyhowardpublishing.com, and sign up for email updates on what's going on in this old lady's life. Thank you again for listening. Have a great day.